Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 11th, 2025 meeting of the Abington Board of School Directors. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I note the attendance of all board members. The Abington Board of School Directors has convened this evening's meeting at the Administration Building, and the public is welcome. The meeting is being broadcast live on the Abington School District YouTube channel. This meeting is being recorded and will be accessible on the district's website and cable channel no later than Friday, March 14th, 2025, to allow those members of the public who cannot participate to view the meeting at a later time. Comments from citizens will be conducted in person and by phone. Information regarding participating remotely in public comment will be displayed on the screen at the time of public comment. The board thanks the public in advance for its cooperation. This is a place where we hold dignity in high regard, and everyone's voice is respected and welcomed in this space. Do we have any additional announcements or additional agenda items, Dr. Fetcher?
Not tonight.
Okay, we'll move to opening comments, please. Mr. Allen.
Nothing, thank you.
Mrs. Brown.
Good evening, everyone.
Ms. Eisenhart.
Good evening and welcome.
Mr. Mohammed.
Good evening, everyone.
Ms. Spalding.
Good evening, everybody.
Ms. Hartman.
Good evening.
Ms. Fraser.
Welcome, everyone. I'm still on a high from Mary Poppins Saturday night.
Oh, it was great, wasn't it?
Ms. Fazy.
Good evening, everyone. I'll second Ms. Fraser's sentiments. Mary Poppins was lovely.
I heard wonderful things about it. Ms. Wu.
Wonderful.
Good evening, everyone.
Okay, welcome. Let's see. Dr. Fetcher, can you please proceed with our student council representatives?
Yes, Dr. Mowry. Tonight, first from Abington Senior High School, Bryson Edmonds.
Good evening, Dr. Mowry, Dr. Fetcher, and the member of the Board of School Directors. My name is Bryson Edmonds, and I'm the Student Council President at Abington Senior High School. It's pretty brief tonight, not a lot of announcements. The Abington Senior High School girls basketball team qualified for PIAA state championships over 13th ranked Springford High School. Michelle Yakupova, a wrestler, qualified for states and will be attending Hershey, PA to compete for a state championship. The work of 18 Abington Senior High School students was juried into the Pennsylvania State Education Association's Touch the Future exhibit at the Fine Arts Gallery in Montgomery County Community College, Blue Bell campus. Blah, blah. David Klinger, an 11th grader, and Brandon Hiriak, a 10th grader, will represent Abington Senior High School in the Pennsylvania Music Educators Association Region 6 Band Festival at North Penn High School. The Abington Reading Olympics teams both brought home blue ribbons, the highest award from the Montgomery County competition. One thing to note is that we were the only school to send 2 teams, both this year and last year. As we enter into the spring months, I want to begin to promote Student Council's Spring Red Cross Blood Drive. It is our largest event of the year and is always very successful. Although it doesn't take place until April, our goal is to get as much engagement as possible, and that means starting early. I just ask that each of you keep it on your mind. The last stretch of the school year is always filled with fun, excitement, and emotions. The next few months are going to go by fast, and is all that we can do to not get swept up in everything going on. Just some food for thought. Thank you and have a nice evening. Respectfully submitted, Bryson Edmonds.
Thank you, Bryson. We just had a student council report at our last board meeting, and partly of what Bryson was referring to is less to report, but we'll get back on our track because we had missed a meeting. So I just wanted to explain that for people who may not have realized that our last meeting we had that. So now at Abington Middle School, Noah Shannon.
Good evening, Dr. Mowry, Dr. Fetcher, and the members of the school board.
of Directors. I am Noah Shannon, and I am on the executive board of the Student Council for Abington Middle School. Vibe and Imagine leaders from Abington Middle School and Abington High School explored the African American Museum in Philadelphia, where leaders took a self-guided tour of the various exhibits. At the time of the visit, the exhibit Shared Vision, a personal curation of the art from actress C.C.H. Ponder, Carol Christine Hillary Ponder, and her late husband, Boubacar Cohn, were on display. As leaders studied their pieces, they were prompted to reflect on the art and afterwards share their findings and musings by using their analytical and public speaking skills they've amassed during their tenure at their respective schools. Teens Against Drugs and Alcohol took a second group of our club's members to Beach Street in February, so an additional 175 students could enjoy an evening of music, dancing, and getting pictures taken with their friends in the photo booth. Earlier the month, we held a movie night in the AMS Little Theater. During the film's intermission, we played some movie trivia games with the winners of the trivia contest earning prizes. The School Beautification Club will work on a mural for the attendance office. There are no windows in the office, so several students will work on this to brighten the office. Other students will take pictures to update the photographs around the building. The fifth and final Math Olympiad contest is quickly approaching. The mathletes have been attending meetings to prepare for the contest in an effort to practice open-ended style problem-solving questions without the use of a calculator. Some really good math talk. The AMS Chess Club continues to have an active participatory group of students. At least 30 plus members attend our meetings, and some really good play occurs, both fun and competitive. It's great to see the students involved in this strategy game activity. Students in Reading Olympics have been working on reading their books. The competition is a month away. Voight's Voyagers, Brainy Bookworms, Bookie Monsters, Page Warriors, and Speed Readers have voted on their team's logo to be included on the competition t-shirts. They will also have an opportunity to participate in some practice rounds to prepare for the big night. The students in the GSA are gearing up for the Day of No Silence in April. This student-led protest draws attention to the discrimination and erasure of LGBTQ plus people. Over 150 student performers and technicians performed Mary Poppins Jr. to 4 sold-out crowds this past week. There was a lot of laughter, applause, and joy on stage, backstage, and in the audience. The students and production team are grateful for the community support and are very proud of their finished product. Thank you.
Thank you, Noah. A lot going on at Abington Middle School, so thank you for coming out with the report.
I just wanted to thank Noah and Bryson for 2 outstanding reports and great information about what our students are doing. I'm glad to hear our students embracing challenge in their extracurricular activities. And I'm especially heartened to hear about the students at the middle school really attending to the quality of their physical environment. So good for you guys. That's great. Dr. Fetcher.
That concludes Student Council reps this
Okay.
evening.
We'll proceed to board honors then.
Thank you, Dr. Mallory. For our first board honor this evening, I'm going to ask Ms. Ali Artur, our communications coordinator, to share video highlighting recent media coverage of Abington School District.
Good evening, Dr. Fetcher, Dr. Mowry, and members of the Board of School Directors. 6ABC's community journalist, Matteo Iodinisi, recently visited Ms. Doherty's 8th grade family consumer science class at Abington Middle School to spotlight the annual Felt Monster Project, which is in partnership with kindergarten classes across Abington School District. Kindergarten students design their own monster, which the middle schoolers then bring to life with their newly learned sewing skills. And Matteo actually reached out to me today and said it is his highest viewed video on social media to date. So it is very popular. Please enjoy the clip.
Finally hear it for. It's called the Felt Monster Project, but it's far from scary or even spooky.
It's actually a unique way for 8th grade students to connect with their kindergarten counterparts. Action News community journalist Mateo Idenisi shares the story from Abington Middle School.
My monster's name is Golden.
My monster's name is Gertrude.
My monster's name is Leo.
You're matching up the crazy blue scribble lines. This is my favorite thing that I get to do as a teacher. Come up and grab your monster. So this is the Felt Monster Project. I thought it would be a really good way to connect our 8th graders, who are kind of the leaders of the middle school, back to some of the younger students in our district. What does your monster like to do, according to the kindergartner?
Eat cookies.
We start by sending the kindergarten classrooms these worksheets, and the kindergartners get to design the monsters however they want. They really get to use their imagination.
My monster's name is Rosa.
They send them back to us, and then the 8th graders apply the skills that we talk about in sewing and fabrics to create a real-life stuffed felt monster to return back to the kindergartners.
And then you roll it down, world's smallest violin. See all the loops?
I'm gonna have the confidence to know that I made a little kid happy today. My younger sister, she did the same thing. And she, as soon as she came home, was running and excited, showing off her little new friend.
I'm just gonna take out a couple stitches for you so that it's long enough we can tie it.
These are all skills that they can take with them to do other things. The same stitches that we're using to make the monsters, they can fix their backpack when the zipper rips, or they can add buttons, or they can learn how to hem, and it's stuff that they can build on beyond this project that they're doing for someone else.
Remember, have fun, be safe, make good choices, and I'll see you next time.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sartor.
That's awesome. I love that connection between school grades.
Absolutely. And for anyone who wears a shirt with a button on it, that's a good skill to have mastered.
Indeed. Hemming is also a lost art, I find. All right, Dr. Fetcher, please proceed with this evening's orientations.
Thank you, Dr. Mallory. Tonight, Mr. Lionetti, Mr. Vittoria, and I will present the 2025-2026 draft general fund budget. There's no action in this evening agenda for the board. However, I will ask that Mr. Vittoria to provide updates since our last meeting. Mr. Vittoria, if you could begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fetcher. So this slide shows the initial draft general fund budget, which is based on staff input, statistical estimates, and estimates of state, local, and federal revenue, with an increase in real estate taxes that reflect the 4% Act 1 index, which raises the millage rate from 37.07% to 38.55 mils. We are using an estimated county assessment, with the actual assessment being available in June of 2025. The other remaining local revenues are early forecasts. State revenue for basic education, special education, transportation, and block grants are budgeted at the information we received from Governor Shapiro's budget presentation. Property tax relief are estimates, and we will know funding in May when PDE determines if funds are available. Federal funds for title and access programs are being budgeted at 24-25 levels. We will have a better idea of funding levels in May and June of 2025. On the expense side of the budget, salaries are being budgeted using the collective bargaining agreements. There are currently 2 agreements that have yet to be finalized. Negotiated benefits are being budgeted at the CPAS second look rates. We have percentages for our mandated benefits, with the PSERS rate being 34% in the 25-26 period. Departmental budgets were provided in January of 2025 and were used to budget non-salary, non-benefit portions of the budget. So this slide shows historical data dating from 2005-2006 to the 24-25 school year. Beginning from the left side of the slide, it shows the millage rates through the years, the percentage increase, the Act 1 index, actual revenue, actual expenses. It also shows the usage of fund balance and the accumulation of fund balance. The far right column shows enrollment history. Looking at the 23-24 school year to 24-25 school year, we can see that enrollment has decreased 204 students. Please note that the 24-25 information for revenue and expenses are budgeted amounts and not actual amounts at this point. So this slide shows prospective and retrospective data regarding the public school employees retirement system, contribution rates, and its impact on the general fund budget over 16 years. At this time, the PSERS employer contribution rate for next year is 34%. PSERS is estimating, looking back at the 2009-2010 school year, we can see that the contribution rate was 7.13%. These increases have increased the district's contribution rates. In 2009-2010, the district was contributing $2.7 million. We are estimating the district to contribute $17 million in the 24-25 school year. So this slide shows a budget-to-budget comparison of the 24-25 budget to the initial draft of the 25-26 budget. The second column of the budget, was approved by the board in June. We now have our auditing starting fund balance for the 24-25 school year at $21.6 million. Local revenue is budgeted at $138.4 million. State revenue is budgeted at $47 million. Federal revenue is budgeted at $2.9 million, and total revenue is $188.3 million. On the expense side of the budget, $96.2 million is for salaries, $18.2 million is for negotiated benefits, $40.7 million is for mandated benefits, and $44.2 million is for non-salary, non-benefit items. The total expense budget is $199.5 million. For the revenue to equal expenses, the budget required an allocated fund balance of $11.1 million. This leaves an estimated ending fund balance of $10.4 million. The fourth column is the initial draft general fund budget for the 25-26 school year. The starting estimated fund balance is $10.4 million. With the millage rate increasing to 38.55 mils, real estate taxes are increasing to $132.2 million, which is a $4 million increase. Overall, local revenue is increasing to $143.8 million, which is a $5.4 million increase. State revenue is estimated to increase to $49.5 million, which is a $2.5 million increase. Federal revenue is budgeted at $2.2 million, which is a decrease of $687,000, which is due to the end of ESSER's funds. ESSER's are the elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds that were provided by the federal government during the COVID-19 pandemic. Salaries are budgeted at $99.7 million, which is a $3.4 million increase. Negotiated benefits for things such as medical and dental are budgeted at $18.9 million, which is a $677,000 increase. Mandated benefits for PSERS and FICA are budgeted at $42.7 million, which is a $1.9 million increase. Non-salary, non-benefit expenses is budgeted at $44 million, which is a decrease of $118,000. The total expense budget is $205.5 million. To balance the revenue expense numbers, allocated fund balance is $9.8 million, leaving a remaining fund balance at $633,478. So this slide is similar to the previous slide, except that we are currently estimating fund balance use in the 24-25 school year to be $5 million. With the use of $5 million in the 24-25 school year, the ending fund balance would be $16.6 million. That would be the beginning balance for the 25-26 school year. And with an ending fund balance of $6.8 million instead of the $633,478 on the previous slide.
If I may, Dr. Fitcher, I want to interject something here. I believe as are approaching the third quarter, you've asked staff to take a hard look at the projected fund balance use of $5 million to work towards reducing that further. I know there are meetings scheduled as early as tomorrow. Start talking about two items, that being the first, and the other is how do we address the $9.5 million that are allocated presently. So I just want to make sure that the board and the folks listening were aware that this is not the end of the story. This is the beginning. We're in a starting place that is better than it was when we started the process last year. We were at over $11 million. We finished that process last year at $11 million, which is what Mr. Vittoria mentioned. And this is the beginning of work and evaluation and not the end of the story. We'll obviously be coming back to the board in May with the work that we'll be doing over the next almost a full 2 months. Thank you, Mr. Vittoria.
So this slide shows the impact on a typical assessment of $141,130, raising the millage rate from 37.07 to 38.55. This assessment would see a tax increase of $208.87, but we are estimating that homestead property tax relief will increase, bringing the tax increase down to $182.87, which is a 3.86% increase on the $141,130 assessment. The impact on a senior with this assessment, the seniors with the income levels, the first three levels from $0 to $18,000 would not see a tax increase. And seniors with an income of $18,001 to $45,000 would see a tax increase of $30.87. So looking ahead, on April 22nd, we will review revenue and expenses, which requires no board action. On May 13th, we'll ask the board to pass 3 resolutions. The first to adopt the 25-26 proposed general fund budget, the intent to adopt the general fund budget on the June 24th meeting, and to authorize the advertisement of the board's intent to adopt the general fund budget on June 24th. Dr. Fetcher, that concludes our presentation, and we can answer any questions that the board might have.
Thank you.
Questions from board members?
I have one. In May, we're going to be asking our community to vote for a referendum to fund a new middle school. Tonight, we're looking at a budget that with about a 3.8% tax increase. Mr. Lionetti, can you explain the timing and implications of the tax increase for the next year, and then how that would, the implications of the referendum payment and the timing of all of that, and how that would affect our community members?
Ms. Hartman, that's a great question. So we are obviously in the planning phases of that proposed $285 million project. And it represents a significant amount of borrowing, which likely can begin in 2026. When I say begin, I believe the best strategy at this moment in time is for a phased-in set of borrowing. We don't need $280 million immediately. There's a time schedule associated with a project like this, 12 to 18 months of planning, which will entail expenditures for architects, engineers, professional services, things like geotechnical services, et cetera. And then even construction over a 3-year period has a curve similar to a bell curve where costs will ramp up and then decline. And what we'll do is we'll look at borrowing strategies with our financial advisor and our bond counsel to see what the best strategy will be. Certainly, our professional architect firms will help us with that schedule, and that will dictate what our borrowing would be. I think if I understand your question, what is the impact on the budget when that debt's incurred? So we will have an increased millage rate, which would increase taxes for people who own property in Abington and Rockledge, and there'll be an expense associated with that. The situation where there's revenue coming in dedicated for that expense, the revenue, the additional revenue, the additional mills that are instituted for covering that debt service ends up being a neutral move with regard to our fund balance use. If there's additional question regarding that, if you need additional clarification, please let me know.
No, thank you.
Any other board members?
Yes, I had a question. In June, we approved the budget that allocated $11.1 million of the general fund. And I just heard you share, Mr. Vittoria, that we're estimating a use of only $5 million. How did we move from the 11.1 to estimating the use of 5 million by the end of this fiscal year?
This budget, like prior year budgets, does have a certain amount of contingency worked into it, where when you have a $190 million budget, you do have to take into account things that may be unknown and be prepared to deal with those. So a certain amount of the expenditures represent a certain amount of contingency. The other factor, of course, is revenue. How does revenue look? So when we passed the budget, we were using the recommended amounts of state funding that the past budget and PD had allocated to us, and in the end, it was actually a little higher, so we're going to earn some more revenue. So that creates a situation where the amount of fund cash that you need from your reserves is lessened. Also, we have taken good advantage of higher interest rates, and we've moved some of our general fund collections and cash into a different account that has higher earnings with a different provider other than our general fund bank. So that's another part of that. And the staff has been asked by Dr. Fetcher to carefully consider their expenses, and those circumstances are what is occurring and leading to that. Certainly, we don't have 100% occupancy, for lack of a better word, of all of your staff positions. So whenever there's a break in staff being in a position, not only do we save on the salary itself, but perhaps sometimes the health benefits, but certainly the mandated benefits, which are a factor of gross payroll. So there's several factors. Those are some of the larger ones. Basically contingency in those items as well, that I mentioned as well.
And so some of these are unforeseen circumstances that positively impact the estimated use of the fund balance. And some of these are intentional steps to reduce our use of the fund balance, correct?
Yes.
And that's been something we've been doing for the last couple of years now?
Yes, in addition to all the other factors that I mentioned.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No. I have a quick, I'm sorry, Mr. Allen, did you want to say something?
Well,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Lionetti and Ms. Vittoria. I'm sure that this is, in historically, you present a very conservative, safe budget, and it continues to get leaner and tighter as more information comes in. And also recognizing that you shared that Dr. Fetcher's been going through a process, even again tomorrow, with staff on being deliberate with purchases or hiring practices. I know that that is a difficult ask, and it's probably not a very fun meeting for tomorrow because you're excited to do and buy and see, to get for the students, and to be told to pause can be very deflating. So recognizing that's going to be a difficult meeting tomorrow, but appreciate the consistent, measured approach to maintaining, expanding, and spending. Thank you. Sorry.
Sure, no, that's fine. Did you want to say something, Mrs. Brown?
What he said. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it is a hard conversation, but ultimately we want to make sure that we don't have to cut programming and that we don't have to cut teachers.
Right.
So in order to do that, you have to look to see what can you cut down so that the cuts don't directly impact the students' educational programming. And it's a hard conversation to have. So thank you for showing up and for doing the work.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
I'm just going to, in terms of hiring practices, we are, anytime there's a retirement or a person leaving a position or exiting any position across the district, regardless of what that position may be, we do a reexamination of that. Are there any other ways we can cover that position, consolidate positions? Because ultimately, when you look at this budget, the largest percentage of this budget are salaries and benefits. So in order to try to reduce the budget, the only way that we're really going to be able to accomplish that is by looking at positions. And that is something that we have examined, especially over the past 2 years, and will continue to do as we have changes in positions or do some reorganizations within our departments to see if we can realize some savings there as well.
And may I say one more thing? You mentioned positions there, and historically, especially over the last 5 years, there have been new positions that we hold as one of our values as far as making sure that students are, there's an inclusive environment, making sure that our practices take into consideration students' ability levels, whether it's physical abilities and things of that nature. So those positions we value, and we want to make sure we can hold on to that. What I hear you saying is that for teachers, administration who is retiring, we will you will reevaluate if those positions need to be refilled, or if they can be filled by someone who's not at the same pay scale as that person who's going out in retirement, things of that nature. So I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah, any structural change to any department or positions would be presented to you as the Board of School Directors for your approval. So if there is a particular position that the administration says, okay, we believe that we can cover this position this way, that will all be presented to you, and that scenario is presented to you prior to approval.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I have a question. On slide 6, I think, where you list federal revenue, we're seeing an almost $700,000 decline. And I was wondering if you could shed a little light on what that revenue covered this budget year and what we will need to cover with that amount for next budget year.
I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't have specific detail.
Okay.
Some of those purchases were one-time only purchases.
Okay.
Which was the intent and direction.
Okay.
In the guidelines in the federal government.
Okay.
So
are those ESSER funds?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. That's what I wanted to know. So it's not, for instance, Title I or special education funding. Okay.
I'll repeat what Mr. Vittori said. We are budgeting the title programs and IDEA, another federal program, at the current rate.
Okay.
We will know more about what those allocations are as we get into May and June.
Okay.
And specifically, that decrease is exactly as you just concluded. Is that the ESSER funds? Yes.
Okay. All right.
So we
Okay.
can get back to you on what the specific detail and what they funded this year. I just don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. That was the clarification I was looking for. I just wanted to make sure that those programs were not being compromised or underfunded in some way for this next year.
Time will tell.
Yeah, well, indeed. Just wanted to add to comments by other board members that preserving the integrity of the district's instructional program is priority one. So with that, thank you. Fetcher?
Okay.
We have a second presentation?
We do.
Okay.
We can move to a new orientation.
Okay.
Okay, tonight we have our elementary mid-year student academic review. In this presentation, we will be reviewing the academic progress of our students, focusing on the results from our fall to winter diagnostic assessments and benchmarks. We'll take a look at the action steps that we have already implemented this year, along with the adjustments that need to be made based on the winter data. Throughout the year, we assess our students 3 times using iReady diagnostics and the Acadience reading benchmarks. These assessments serve to measure student progress, identify strengths and areas for growth, and ultimately inform instruction. While the iReady diagnostic helps us track individual growth from fall to spring, the benchmark assessments give us a broader view of where our students are in their learning journey and their preparedness for future standardized tests and exams. As we review the winter results, we will also discuss some of the intervention strategies we have put into place for students who are below grade level and those in need of more targeted support. We will share how we are adapting our plans moving forward to ensure every student continues to make necessary progress. We have already seen improvement, but we recognize there are still gaps to address, especially among certain student groups, and we are committed to narrowing those gaps through targeted action. I now ask that Dr. Stephanie Viola, Assistant Director of Elementary Teaching and Learning, Dr. Jim Etlin, Principal of Highland Elementary, Ms. Karima Boyd, Principal of Overlook Elementary, Ms. Melissa Bunkin, a Reading Specialist, and Ms. Kelly Reimer, Grade 5 teacher, to provide an orientation on the elementary mid-year student achievement.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Mowry, Dr. Fetcher, and board of the school and members of the Board of School Directors. As Dr. Fetcher shared, tonight we are presenting the elementary mid-year student academic review. We hope to share with you the results from fall to winter. Again, as Dr. Fetcher shared, we have 2 assessment data sets to point out this evening. At the elementary level, we use diagnostic assessments through iReady for reading and math, and we use the Acadience Reading Benchmark Assessment, which assesses a subset of skills for foundational learning of literacy. Primarily, we use this with our K through 2 students. The data sets are different, so when you hear about the diagnostic assessments, it is important to realize that they measure students from their starting point in the fall, and we look to see how much progress they make at the winter time in order to ensure that we get them to the appropriate level by the spring. And with the Acadience, we really track and use Acadience for progress monitoring to make sure that our students, again, are moving in the right direction, and we can see that they will be able to achieve some proficiency by the end of the year. At this time, Dr. James Etlin will share some of our reading data.
Good evening. This chart highlights the results of our winter iReady reading diagnostic for students in kindergarten through grade 5. The percentage of all of our students that are on or above grade level at this point, as well as the performance of our students disaggregated by specific demographic groups. What's important to note is on grade level is the level where we would expect students by the end of the year. So our expectation is that our students will continue to improve through the end of the school year. As you can see at this point, all of our students, including disaggregated student groups, have made growth since the benchmark given at the beginning of the school year. While we recognize there are performance gaps among our disaggregate groups, I want to highlight the gains made from the beginning of the year and point out that our disaggregate groups have made on average a 20% point improvement from the beginning of the year. We continue to monitor the progress of our students, especially those in our disaggregate groups, through our core team data reviews, which are part of our multi-tiered system of support. At this point, our school teams have re-examined our school-wide plans that we developed in the beginning of the year to examine the success of our interventions and look for opportunities to change, modify, or enhance interventions, especially for those in Tier 3 reading support, special education, or English language development. To further demonstrate the progress of our students, the progress our students are making, this slide illustrates the placement distribution of students from the fall to the winter. As you can see, the percentage of students that are either on or above grade level has increased from 40% in the beginning of the year to 63% in the winter. And the percentage of students that are reading either 1, 2, or 3 grade levels below has decreased from 60% in September to 37% during the winter benchmark. The black arrow shows that while students may start the year not on grade level, as they receive grade level instruction, they should be able to meet grade level expectations by the end of the year. I want to set the stage to give you a sense of what we are doing to teach and remediate foundational skills for our students in grades K through 2, as well as teaching and remediating knowledge building skills for students in grades 3 through 5. We started the year with a focus on 2 key areas when teaching foundational skills. Number 1, ensuring our multi-tiered system of support was solidly in place. This was ensuring effective instruction was being delivered in both whole and small group settings. Effective center activities, the use of iReady for personalized instruction, Tier 3 reading support, special education, and English language development for students who qualify. And number 2, the use of Hegarty and ECRI, or enhanced core reading instruction, to provide students with explicit instruction in phonics, phonemic awareness, and fluency. After our winter benchmark, there are several mid-year pivots that we're making to ensure continued growth and achievement with our students. Number 1, as it relates to teaching foundational skills, we're looking to incorporating quick phonics screeners to identify specific phonics needs. And number 2, for students that have been referred to the core team who may be struggling, developing intervention plans designed to closely track progress connected to the supports that are being given, increasing the fidelity of classroom instruction through feedback given during walkthroughs and classroom observations, and scaffolding supports like using peer tutors to work with students using flashcards or paired reading. I'm going to ask Ms. Melissa Bunkin, reading specialist at Highland and Overlook, to share with you the next few slides that will illustrate the progress of Tier 3 students who are receiving intervention with a reading specialist.
Thank you, Dr. Etlin. Good evening. I will share our reading support group's performance data from our mid-year benchmark in specific foundational skills. We will examine key metrics, areas of strength, as well as opportunities for improvement, which will guide our instruction as we move forward. Our Tier 3 reading support groups are identified through a process called MTSS, or Multi-Tiered System of Support. And this MTSS process is a comprehensive framework which Abington School District uses in order to identify students with learning and behavior needs, and as well as support those students. Tier 3 reading support with a reading specialist is provided for students with our most significant reading needs. Our screening process includes regular benchmark and progress monitoring screening, which we use to identify students' needs and monitor our intervention effectiveness. The numbers you see on this screen represent our kindergarten and first grade reading support groups' performance data from fall to winter in kindergarten and first grade for 2 measures. For kindergarten, we're looking at first sound fluency, and for grade 1, we're looking at nonsense word fluency, specifically correct letter sounds. Please note the end counts, as this data represents a targeted group of students who are identified as needing intensive reading support at the beginning of year benchmark for Acadian's benchmark assessment. As you can see, there are increases in number of students at or above benchmark in each of these measures. I want to highlight some individual growth patterns. On the left is our grade K fall and winter first sound fluency data. Note the significant improvement in kindergarten after we implemented our phonemic awareness routines and instruction. This results show that the intervention provided by the reading specialist as well as the classroom teacher have improved and made a positive impact on these specific students. Now I'd like to draw your attention to our grade 1 reading support data. As you will see, that some students are not making or moving as swiftly forward as some of the kindergarten students in this other measure. This provides us with an opportunity for growth. We can grow in word recognition and oral reading fluency. This data also aligns with our classroom observations, where students have demonstrated needs in these areas, which is why the mid-year pivots suggested by Dr. Edlin are so vital. Our response to this mid-year data will be to using additional assessments, to add in additional assessments such as the quick phonics screener. That allows us to pinpoint specific phonics needs, which then we can build that into our instruction moving forward. We use multi-sensory strategies. That helps to engage and differentiate for all of our learners. And we will double down and provide more repeated practice because students need more exposures and opportunities to practice fluency to grow at a faster rate. The numbers you see on this side represent our reading support group's performance data for grade 2 in 2 measures. On the left is oral reading fluency % accuracy, and on the right is oral reading fluency words correct per minute. Again, this is a targeted group of students that was identified as needing reading support based off of the beginning of year benchmark assessment. So they are seen in a small group with a reading specialist. This data show increases in the number of students at or above benchmarks in one area, oral reading fluency words correct per minute. This occurred after implementing focused fluency, instruction, and routines. I also want to draw your attention to grade 2's oral reading fluency % accuracy, which indicates that some students are not making the same progress on this measure as compared to the oral reading fluency words correct. This matches our classroom observations highlighting students' needs in these areas. We see growth opportunities here. We see growth opportunities for developing accuracy when reading. So % accuracy is looking at the percentage of words that students read correctly. So they would benefit from additional instruction for word attack strategies, developing their self-monitoring strategies, targeting specific error patterns that we can build into our instruction, as well as providing immediate feedback when they're reading orally so that they can hear what errors they made so that they can make those corrections to improve for next time. Now Dr. Etlin will share action steps taken for grades through 5 students.
Our approach to reading instruction in grades 3 through 5 includes a heavy emphasis on knowledge building skills. This means students need to develop language comprehension, which includes building background knowledge, improving vocabulary, and language structure. Teachers began this year helping students build comprehension skills through lessons on responding to text-dependent analysis questions and utilizing closed reading and writing strategies. When time, or what I need time, is also an opportunity for differentiated instructional groups to target specific areas of need. It's during this time that students may work with a reading specialist, special education teacher, or English language development teachers. To support the growth of our English language learners, teachers received professional development using the Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol earlier this school year. Some of the mid-year adjustments we've made to what we started the school year with is doing repeated practice answering text-dependent analysis questions, collaborative scoring of writing pieces, goal setting with students as well as teachers, instructional planning with members of the core team, and ongoing collaboration between teachers and ELD teachers. Ms. Bunkin will share some data from our students in grades 3 through 5 who are receiving reading support from a reading specialist.
As Dr. Etlin mentioned, the data on this slide represents our reading support group's performance data for grades 3 and 4. On the next slide, we will look at data for grade 5. Students in these groups have significant needs in the area of comprehension. This data comes from our iReady reading diagnostic, specifically looking at comprehending literature and informational text. The grade 3 and 4 reading support group's performance from fall to winter on comprehension shows good progress. There are increases in the number of students who are at or above benchmark in both comprehension of literature and informational text at the midpoint. The improvement is a direct result of a two-fold approach. Small group instruction is being provided in the general education classroom by the classroom teacher, as well as tailored interventions by the reading specialist. We see fewer students performing significantly lower than below grade level, suggesting that this approach has a positive impact. That's why our mid-year adjustments include an increase in fluency instruction, vocabulary development, and close reading strategies in order to help students comprehend and analyze text. During small group instruction, we will spend time honing on students' specific strategies for reading comprehension. Mid-year, our efforts will include bringing in additional nonfiction text, providing opportunities for TDI analysis and close reading. And we will increase this both in the whole class setting as well as in our small group setting. The numbers you see on this slide represent our reading support group's performance data for grade 5 from the fall to winter diagnostic. Again, there is improvement in comprehension of both literature and informational text. As you can see, there are increases in number of students at this group at or above grade level in comprehension of both measures, literature and informational text at the midpoint. Similar to grades 3 and 4, this is a result of a two-fold approach, having the small group instruction within the classroom by the classroom teacher, as well as tailored interventions by the reading specialist. While we see a percentage of below-level students decreasing, we are constantly monitoring their progress and changing our instruction as students' needs change. And so we are continuing to target those skills so that they can increase their progress at a faster pace. Now I'd like to turn the slideshow back to Dr. Etlin, who will share data regarding the progress of our English language learners. Thank you for listening tonight to me.
As we shared earlier, one of the areas that we are targeting to support is the achievement of our English language learners. What we're doing is we're focusing on explicit vocabulary instruction. When we look at the progress that this demographic group has made in the area of vocabulary from the beginning of the school year to the winter benchmark, we can see some positive gains across the grades. The percentage of students below or significantly below level has decreased, which suggests repeated exposure to content area vocabulary is having a positive impact. Some additional and next steps we are continuing to take, in addition to the ones mentioned earlier, are implementing before or after school clubs that are designed to target students in need of additional reading and math support. We will be encouraging summer reading either through providing books, reading logs and incentives, or more targeted reading packets that we send home. Also, we're planning for the implementation of our new reading program, Amplify CKLA, or Core Knowledge Language Arts, which we will begin starting at the beginning of the 2025-2026 school year. Amplify CKLA focuses heavily on reading instruction through development of both foundational and knowledge building skills. The implementation of this new program will, of course, include professional development and planning for the use of a new benchmarking tool this spring. Additionally, we will be informing parents of this new program so they know what to expect coming the new school year. Also, as an outcome of our ELA committee's work, there will be a recommendation at a future board meeting this spring to adopt a new intervention program for reading that will be used with students needing more intensive reading support. At this time, Ms. Karima Boyd, principal of Overlook Elementary, will review our math data.
Good evening. I will present the K-5 iReady Mathematics Diagnostic Assessment data. Across kindergarten to grade 5, and within our K-5 disaggregated groups, there have been notable gains from the fall to the winter administration of the assessment. Overall, we see improvement across all disaggregated groups. However, when compared to our all-student group, an opportunity gap exists within our demographic data, which is of great concern. What's more troubling is there's a significant number of students that are represented in more than one disaggregated group. What is important to note is that on grade level is the level where we expect all students to be by the end of the year. So our expectation is that students will continue to improve through the end of this school year. When looking at the data on the graph, the winter iReady Mathematics Diagnostics results displayed by the dark green bar shows that the percentage of students on or above grade level have more than doubled for most disaggregated student groups. One group to take note of is the English language learners, where now more than 3 times as many students are on or above grade level in the winter compared to the fall. However, we do recognize at the mid-year point that we still have students who need to grow significantly to ensure that all disaggregated groups are at the same level as the all-student group. Our school-wide improvement plans targeted group gaps at the beginning of the year, especially among our disaggregated groups. Since receiving the winter diagnostic results, we have completed extensive data analysis reviews with our core teams and teachers to ensure individuals' students' needs are targeted for appropriate interventions. As we look at the placement distribution of students, I want to draw your attention to the black line across the chart. It is important to know that when we look at iReady diagnostic assessment data, we expect students to be on grade level by the completion of the academic year. The goal is for students to be in the green areas, which represent on or above grade level, by the spring. At the start of the school year, our students were 26% of our students began the year performing at on or above grade level, which shows a strong start since they have not yet received grade level instruction. By the winter, which is the middle bar, the percentage of students performing on or above grade level grew from 26% to 49%. We recognize the need to increase those gains by the spring. In the area of mathematics, often the scores are dependent on what the students have been taught thus far. With that in mind, we completed data analysis with our school teams to identify areas for improvement and to create a plan as to how to address those areas in the second half of the school year. From fall to winter, we focus heavily on the instructional delivery of illustrative mathematics. We revisited how to build mathematical communities, and emphasize the use of math discourse and math routines. We continued to implement win time, what I need time for all students, and use data analysis to identify students needing Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3 support. To meet the needs of all student learners, we capitalize on Universal Design for Learning, which is UDL. UDL is a framework that increases accessibility and takes into consideration the learner's needs. For example, some mathematics lessons are adjusted to be more engaging, to represent information in a different way, or to improve students with an opportunity to express what they know in their own manner. Mid-year, after considerable data analysis with building teams and teachers, certain changes took place. For example, we revisited accountability talk through the use of prompts with students. We plan to use faculty meeting times to revisit strategies or lessons needing to be spotlight. And we began to use the use of guided math to incorporate specific routines and looked for a frequency of fidelity of intervention time. For example, we want to ensure that all students are using iReady for the recommended time and that they are not only using iReady, but are passing lessons during iReady, and that pull-out groups occur within the expected frequency. Now, Ms. Kelly Reimer, a fifth grade teacher at Highland Elementary, will share some additional math data.
So this slide here shows the progress of students who are starting the year either one grade level below or well below the grade level expectation, as well as their progress through the winter. So if you'll notice on the left, that is our fall. So of the kindergarten students who were not performing on grade level, 99% of them were one grade level below. And if you look at the fifth grade data, of the students who are not at a grade level, 66% of them were one grade level below, 17 would be two grade levels below, as well as 17% would be three grade levels below. Looking at that data, so just want to make sure we're looking at the same group of students, just the kids who are not on grade level at the time according to iReady. Typically, we don't anticipate, as you've heard Mrs. Boyd say, that the students would be on grade level at the beginning of the year. It is September when they take it. Now, after we receive this data, teachers then would group the students based on their area of needs. They might receive small group instruction. It could be pushed in during the classroom time. It could be pulled out for specific needs. And that would occur, as you've heard, during that win time, that what I need time. Now, after all this intervention has been received, you'll see on the right-hand side the winter results. We're not anticipating them to all have made it to on grade level because it's only halfway through the school year, but you can see a growth has been made at that midway point. Even just looking at that kindergarten data, of the students that they're the same groups of students, 99% were one grade level below. Now the kindergarten group, we've got 24% on grade level, 24% just beginning on grade level, et cetera. Now, when you're looking at these results, it's important to keep in mind that the students may not have yet received instruction yet on a specific content. So we're not anticipating that they'd be all the way on the grade level. Now, after analyzing this data, it was realized that the greatest growth happened with the standards that were being directly taught in the classroom. So, for example, grades 1 through 5 didn't receive a lot of instruction on geometry, so we didn't see a lot of growth in that area. Whereas kindergarten had a unit on shapes, and of course, their scores jumped up a lot in that geometry area. Grade 1 had a big jump in operations and algebraic thinking. And if you think about it, their first 3 units are focused on that. So we'd anticipate it. It's not a surprise that they would have a big growth in that area on the winter diagnostic. We'll get a much more complete picture of where the students stand when we take our spring diagnostic at the end of the school year. Now, switching groups. This is a different group that we're looking at now. This slide's going to focus on students that are receiving math enrichment. So now, before we look at this slide, I just wanted to take a moment to talk about the illustrative math program. It is a rigorous mathematics program, and it challenges all the students. There's a special type of problem called exploration, and those are designed for those students who are ready to take that next step. And oftentimes, teachers are using those exploration type problems during that win time, as well as during their instructional time to meet those needs of the students that we're looking at right here. Also, students in grades 3, 4, and 5 have an additional, more structured math enrichment time with the elementary curriculum specialists. So not only do they receive the exploration problems in their classroom, extensions that the teachers are doing, they also are going to have opportunities to work with the curriculum specialist at this time. Let's see. The 2 graphs are showing the growth of these students that are in the math enrichment groups. You'll see on the left-hand side their fall data, and then you can see the large jumps, the large gains that have happened on the right-hand side on their winter diagnostic. Also wanted to share that the teachers have been, as well as the data that's been collected on the curriculum-based unit assessments that come with illustrative mathematics, they've been showing a lot of promising results. Teachers have talked about that they see students thinking about solutions differently. They're demonstrating their understanding in a different way, and their use of math language and vocabulary has definitely become much more sophisticated.
Next, I would like to share the action steps that we will take in spring of 2025 and in the fall of 2025 to support students and teachers in the areas of mathematics. In the spring of 2025, our next steps for math include having students attend programs before and after school for extra support, especially as we approach PSSA. We also intend to promote summer enrichment activities over the months where they're not in school. These are in addition to all the instructional moves we described as the mid-year adjustments. Teachers and students are more comfortable with our math program during the second year of implementation of illustrative mathematics. So we're looking at ways in which we can capitalize on small group instruction for differentiation. Next school year, guided math instruction will be revisited so that it could be a strategy that we utilize using illustrative mathematics. We will also continue to foster mathematical communities that are enriched in math discourse and routines for problem solving. As the presentation comes to a close, I would like to highlight some of the mid-year accomplishments. By mid-year, we want to see that all of our students are making appropriate growth. To measure growth on the diagnostic, we look for students' progress towards annual typical growth, or which some consider the median. We expect the median to be at or above 50%, which means half of the students have achieved growth that was greater than the median, and then half of the students are performing growth that is less than the median. I'm happy to report the data reflects that the median is above 50% in all reading and math groups, with the exception to grade 3 math, which is just at 50%. By the end of the school year, the goal is for the annual typical growth to reach 100% or better. And we're on our way to meeting that goal. When we celebrate the successes, we attribute it to our students, our teachers, and our parents. There are several actions that we have taken and continue to take as the year progresses. We set goals at the start of the year, and we look at data with teachers continuously to monitor how students are performing. We also have targeted look-fors during walkthroughs and observations of instruction in both ELA and math. Providing meaningful feedback to teachers is essential, as well as identifying what topics are key for meaningful professional development. We also encourage opportunities for teachers to observe each other and share ideas through collaboration. Working together with our parents and guardians is another way where we support student success. We have lots of opportunities for families to come into elementary schools, but we're always looking for ways to increase their involvement, especially when it comes to supporting their students academically. Finally, all schools are continuously looking for ways to promote initiatives to increase student engagement. We know when students feel valued and have a positive experience in school, that they will be able to learn and achieve success.
In this slide, each of our schools do many things to engage our families and provide them with information to help support their children. This slide shows a few examples of our outreach. We all have a number of family events for the purpose of supporting students' academic progress. We hold math nights, reading nights. There's one book, one school events, and a lot more. To keep our families informed about how their child is progressing after each diagnostic test, a family report is posted on Skyward so parents can see how their child is progressing throughout the year. Items such as this iReady report, along with other information, is shared during parent-teacher conferences, which are held twice annually. One point of pride is during our fall conferences across all 7 elementary schools, 97% of our families participated in a conference with their child's teacher. Our curriculum materials provide support for families. Shown here is an example of our illustrative mathematics family support guide, which is distributed to families along with a video link at the start of each new unit of instruction. And finally, as we conclude this presentation, I want to mention that our teams will continue to monitor the performance of our students, especially as we prepare for the upcoming administration of the PSSA, and we will use that along with the data from the benchmark assessment that will be administered in the spring to evaluate what went well and what are some things that we are going to do differently during the 2025-26 school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you clarify the time when the assessments were taken? We have fall and winter. and we're at March 11th tonight. Can you talk about when these assessments were given?
The fall benchmark is given in the beginning of the school year, so around September is the fall benchmark. The winter benchmark is administered in January, and the spring benchmark is administered in May.
So some of the adjustments and interventions that we're speaking about, this is January where we're getting results, and tonight's March.
Correct.
So those adjustments have already been implemented and are underway, correct?
The modifications that we discussed, yes.
Okay. Thank you. We can answer any questions that you may have.
I imagine that we'll have a lot of questions. But before I turn it over to my colleagues, I just wanted to thank you for that very detailed and comprehensive presentation. I know that some of the things we struggle with in this district are not unique to us. They're a national problem. But we're not charged with the education of students nationally. We're charged with the education of students here. And so some local solutions, I think, are warranted. But with that, having said that, I will now turn it over to my board colleagues. Questions? Mrs. Brown.
Yes. Not necessarily a question for you, perhaps a question for the school district and the partnerships that we have with communities. When I look at grade 1 and grade 2 in reading, not showing the progress that we see in kindergarten and in grades 3 and 4, I'm wondering if that information, specifically I heard things like students working with a peer and getting immediate feedback is an intervention that would help students with those nonsense words and things of that nature. If those specific details are shared with community, not community members, but community organizations such as the local library, and if we could marry what we saw earlier with 8th graders working with kindergartners, is there an incentive for perhaps students to go to the library, buddy up with someone on a Saturday? The 8th graders receive service hours for it, and they're helping students with that immediate feedback with phonemic awareness and things of that nature. I just wanted to know, have we tapped into sharing, not names of students, because we protect students' rights and we protect their test scores and all that, but have we shared the needs? Because we're seeing that with all the efforts that we have in school, with inviting parents in, with doing the one book challenge, one school, one book challenge, there are some grades that aren't showing the progress that we want to see in school. So do we have partnerships outside of school is a question for administration.
Right. So I don't know if anyone wants to speak to that in terms of partnerships. I know that we do have some book challenges where students from the high school will read with students from the elementary school, and some buddying up on that level. In terms of the partnerships outside of the school district, I can't really speak to that as much as perhaps.
The one that comes to mind instantly that's at all 7 schools is we do have a partnership with the Abington Township Libraries. They do come in, do presentations for our students. They review our summer book lists so that students know how to get a library card and go to the library and what's available to them there. Mm-hmm. In terms of sharing results, we haven't done that for a couple of reasons, but we could work with local groups to provide more early literacy types of programs for our younger students and encourage parents who would be interested in attending. I do know that many of the workshops that we have at our schools, our evening events, the principals could speak to, do focus on early literacy skills. People here have done those workshops with parents.
Yeah, and I know we can't share lists, for example, our Tier 3 students who aren't, and that's what I was specifically talking about, our Tier 3, Grade 1 and Grade 2 students. We can't share that list, but I believe we can give parents information and say, this is a program that's being offered perhaps at the library, where you could buddy up with an 8th grader, and this is how it would impact your student, because that constant exposure, not just in school, but outside of school, is how we're going to see the growth. And sometimes parents and guardians aren't able to give that time because they're out working, or they're doing something that does not allow that student to have that immediate feedback on an ongoing basis. So sharing something like that with the parent and then working with an organization, I think, would be fruitful.
Okay. Ms. Eisenhart?
Mrs. Brown, thank you for that thoughtful response. I was watching the data, looking at it, and I was reflective on my own experience with children who aren't meeting grade level reading benchmarks year after year. And I was thinking about the teachers in this room or parents that are listening and experiencing that. And, Mrs. Brown talked greatly about offering alternative options for students to have opportunities to create literacy habits that will eventually work or could work. Looking at that data, it's really difficult to understand that we're talking about kids. We're talking about individuals. And what we don't see is that there's developmental ranges for when this is going to happen for our kids. And that's probably the most difficult thing to see. I just want to create an opportunity to speak to that as a parent, and also for the teachers and the support staff and everybody that is pouring into kids. What happens more often than not is that there isn't an exact playbook that is going to predict when it's going to click for some of these students. And I think an emphasis on providing opportunities and enrichment and homework tips and workshops and every single angle being introduced to these students, but also to their families, to their loved ones, to their communities, can make a difference for one student, can make a difference in one instance. So just wanted to take the opportunity to acknowledge that, to acknowledge the hard work it is for educators to be pouring in and providing the resources and not seeing the results that we want to see on the presentation this evening. And also to parents out there to say, keep doing the work, keep accessing what you can. To loved ones of children that are struggling, be patient, be loving, be kind. We may not see it in second grade. We may not see it in first grade. They can get there if we keep working with them. So there's no way to quantify what I'm saying, but I think it's a very important part of this conversation with the data that we're seeing and talking about tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. One was just a point of confusion for me. I was looking at slide 6 and 7, where we're talking about the students identified for intensive reading support. And in the fall, 23% were at or above benchmark. So how are they identified for intensive reading support if they're already at or above benchmark? And so what else goes into why they're in that space?
It's the Acadians. We use more than one measure to determine which students would qualify for reading support. So this may not show you the entire picture of a child's profile. So we look at multiple measures to determine which students may qualify for reading support.
So what are some of those measures?
If I might add, we selected these specific subtests because they have data from fall and winter. with Acadians, not all the subsets are tested all year long for all kids. So it may change, for kindergarten or for first grade or for second grade. So this is one of multiple subtests that are used to identify students for support. So they may have been proficient in this subset test, but not in the others. So Acadians has several. You could probably name them all. But we also have the iReady data for the students. And in the upper grades, after kindergarten obviously is just beginning with us, but first and second graders have unit tests, which can be analyzed.
Yeah, I only asked that because just thinking about deployment of resources, right? And if just from this particular slide or these two slides, it looks like maybe some of them don't need to be
It's a good
there,
question,
right?
right?
But I understand that there are other
So this is not the only
measures.
data set that
Yeah.
determines whether or not the student would be in reading support. This is the measure we decided to show you because it has 2 points of data.
Okay, thank you. And then I had questions about the next steps, right? Because I'm concerned about the students who hadn't met that median growth, and extra work is going to have to happen for them to catch up by the May benchmark. And so just like, what is the structure of these before and after school programs, the outreach plan, the anticipated numbers, just those three in particular.
The before and after school programs vary school to school. So what my morning academic program focuses on and is targeting may be different than what Overlook or Roslyn is targeting. So it does vary, but like our focus at Highland, we're focusing on math skills and improving students in grades 3, 4, and 5 we're targeting math basically.
At Overlook, we have an after-school program, and we target grades 3, 4, and 5 in preparation for PSSA. So it's a PSSA prep. And there are 6 weeks of ELA instruction and test-taking skills, and then 6 weeks of mathematics and test-taking skills.
Okay, and so thank you for the Highland and the Overlook picture. Do we have information for the rest of the district in terms of these before and after school opportunities for students who are still struggling?
Yes, we do, and they were included in any of the school's individual plans. So that information's in there. Is there another location or anything you want to supplement to that?
No, I think it would be reflected in their school-wide plans.
Yeah.
If not, I can provide it for you.
Okay.
And you did ask a second part, how are students identified? So this school will identify students that they feel would benefit from attending a program and do outreach to the parents, and parents provide transportation to these programs.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just ask a quick follow-up question to Mr. Mohammed? What's the rate of participation in those programs? So once you identify students who are in need of that extra help, what's the rate of participation among those students? Do you have any?
Once we identify the students, the rate of participation is, I would say, 96%
Okay.
of the students participate. I would like to share and be transparent that one barrier that we have is transportation. So if it's before school, you then have to make sure that your parents can bring you, especially if they're not in a walking zone. And for me, a lot of students that were invited could not participate because there was no way for them to get picked up after school because they catch a bus.
Okay. Thank you. That's good to know.
May I ask?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to make sure that students' privacy is protected, but if there is one student who's coming that lives in the same neighborhood because they go to the same school, is it possible through the PTO or the PTA that those parents get together to see if they can come up with a plan or to come up with a plan for transportation. And again, you can tell me that.
Some do.
Yeah. Is there a way to promote it?
I think it's difficult to, I mean,
It takes
you
a
can always
village is what
share,
I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
you can always share, like, if someone may need it, but oftentimes, if we may not know that transportation is the barrier
Okay.
for them participating, we may offer the morning club or the after-school club, and a parent may decline without really providing a reason as to why they're declining.
Is
If
it
we
the-
knew, sometimes we are able to make connections or set up carpooling with certain families, but oftentimes we're just unaware that that's a barrier.
Yeah. Is it the counselors that reach out or the teachers who reach out to the parents to offer the programming?
It's the curriculum specialist. At least speaking for Highland, it's the curriculum specialist that does that.
If there was a survey of questions that is asked of each family, would that help you to get that information?
Yeah, that can give us that information.
I believe we are in the age of it takes a village. And we have to remember that. And we also have to put student safety as a top priority too. So I'm not just saying put your child in anybody's car. But it does take a village, and we're going to need to keep that mindset.
Yeah. Okay, I want to turn now to my colleagues on this side of the dais. Ms. Spalding.
No,
No?
no, I'm good.
Okay. Ms. Hartman?
Thank you for the presentation and for all of the information. All of the supports that you listed, there was one that I felt was missing, and I think I don't want us to get lost in the text-dependent analysis and the benchmarking and the assessments and the phonics instruction. If we're not making sure that kids are developing a love of reading, because the love of reading is what's going to help them to become better readers. So are kids given opportunities for independent reading where they're not just library once a week? I know they have that as, an opportunity, but is there time built into the classroom where kids are choosing books that they want to read, and time in the classroom to explore books that they choose, to foster a love of reading, to build that muscle? Because kids need that opportunity, and a lot of them might not be getting that at home. They might not have access at home. Are we giving them those opportunities in the classroom to really build that love of reading, to strengthen those skills through materials that they're choosing to read?
Teachers are often doing read alouds. Our One Book, One School is one of the ways that we promote reading, where everyone in the school is reading the same thing, where there's questions that are asked and children get an opportunity to answer trivia questions related to the story that is being read. Their names are called over the morning announcements. So that's one of the ways that we promote reading. We also have a reading night coming up. So for students that may be a reluctant reader, they may come out to a reading night and may find or may be inspired to read books. One thing I heard from actually Ms. Reimer shared this strategy, and I actually happened to share with a parent who indicated the same thing, that her child wasn't really enjoying reading. I said, well, sometimes you may have to, then again, this didn't come from me, this came from Ms. Reimer. You may have to reassociate reading. So pick their favorite blanket, or get some popcorn, and while you're sitting down reading with them, have them wrap up in their blanket or have them snack on their favorite snack. So now you're associating something that's enjoyable with reading. So I think just continuing to talk about strategies such as that one I just mentioned, doing reading nights, One Book, One School, hopefully that inspires children to love reading.
Respectfully, I'm gonna challenge you a little bit. One book, one school, one book is 1 month out of the year, right? Reading nights are 1 night out of the year. I just want to reiterate the importance of reading in the classroom every day, not just the assigned reading, not just what's, because this is a deficit, I think, in our society with our testing. We want to make sure the kids are getting the skills that they need to take a test, but they're not going to retain the skills if they hate reading. And kids need to find that love of reading through their own choice. So one school, one book, they're all reading the same book. So yes, that's a strategy, but I just want to make sure that we're giving kids time to read and not prescribing for them what to read. Because a lot of times kids don't want to read what I'm a teacher. I know they open the anthology and they're bored to death. So are we giving them those opportunities? So I don't need you to respond. I just want to make sure that you're understanding my point, that it's not just those few times of the year that we're exploring a love of reading. It's every single day in the classroom.
No, I understand. That's duly noted. But when I mentioned the one book, one school, I wasn't saying that to discount that teachers read aloud, not just during one book, one school, but they do read aloud to their classrooms, and children are given opportunities for SSR. So I wasn't saying that to discount those important pieces.
Thank you.
Can you speak to choice works and libraries within the classroom where students have an opportunity to select something of interest to them?
Sure, most classrooms in the building have classroom libraries where children are able to pick and select the books that they may enjoy.
And how about the school library?
Children go to the library once a week, where I know they tend to fight over the books that they want to take out. So it's.
And they have opportunities in instruction time. You mentioned SSR, which is sustained silent reading.
Correct.
And that would be an opportunity to read one of those books.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
I would just, can I add something in here? So I think too, to consider is we're talking about, populations of children that may not be at the reading level that is at that level in the classroom. So things that I get really excited about is when I hear children coming home and saying that, on their Chromebook, they were able to listen to their favorite book. And they were super excited because they got to pick the topic that they were into and they were listening to it and participating. Or other things that I love to hear is like, graphic novels and what that meant, or like picture books, or reading like ancillary objects or things that participate. And, I love to hear Abington doing those things and to expand on it. I think that reaches more of what you're talking about, Rachel, because this population isn't we're looking at it. They're not at those reading levels. How do we get them interested when they can, when they're struggling at that deficit to begin with? So if you want to expand on any of those, that would be lovely to hear. But those are a couple that I'm aware of. And I get excited about hearing our kids doing and exploring, because the outcome is the same if it happens in third grade or fourth grade or fifth grade. It's bringing them to an enjoyment, whether it's to find information or to engage with it, listening to it, picture reading, whatever it is, the comprehension is moving along.
And we do have Amplify starting next year, which offers, according to the orientation, offers more choice, the read aloud, so that students can assess their comprehension without getting stuck on reading the word. Right. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that produces fruit next year as well.
Yes.
Excuse me. I want to bring up one point, and that's, I'm older than a lot of you in here, is it's important that the child see the parents read. I love to read. There's days I don't turn my TV on because I'm in the middle of a good book, well, except for the evening news. My father loves to read. The mailman even comments and says, "Oh, you're about the only one on my route that gets all these magazines." Yes, I still subscribe to magazines. I think if the child saw the parents reading, they would say, "Okay, maybe I can pick up a book too." And that's something we don't see, especially with young parents. I don't see them. I buy so many books that about every other month or so, I'm donating a box full to the library because I don't have space in my living room, in my office, in my bedroom to keep them all. And I do pass them on to other people. So I just think, yes, I agree with Rachel was saying that they do need an opportunity to read every day in school, but they also need to get it from home. And that's something that, you know, we have to realize that especially a lot of these younger people, they don't read. So how can you expect the kids to read?
I do want to say I noticed on our oh my God, I'm losing my train of thought. The buildings and grounds permits that Willow Hill's doing a staff parent student book club, which I thought was really awesome. That's a really great way to engage the parents. You made me think of that because I was looking through it. So,
Ms. Frazier, you've been
So
very
great.
patient.
Yeah, great, especially because I have to go to the bathroom. But anyway, that's a great segue. When my four were coming through Abington schools, they had reading logs. And every day in the evening, the whole family, we'd read and they would have to record in the reading log. And so also you mentioned the modeling, clearly, kids modeling their, seeing individuals at home read, of course, is going to have a positive effect on them. Nowadays, I hate to say nowadays because we're saying this so much, but many people, the trend is to have your phone in your hand. And so reading looks like this, scrolling. And the attention spans, we know how it's affecting that, as opposed to if you're reading, you're having to sit down, you're having to focus, you're having to, and I think it would enhance the attention spans. But my question, Ms. Boyd, I think you sort of answered it in a sense, but I just want to be sure. Has the two data sets, iReady and Acadience, improved district-wide, or was this specific to Highland and possibly Overlook? Bless you.
It's across the district.
Great, okay.
The data, all the data that we've shown is across the district.
And also, when I see reading support, is that synonymous with, I'm thinking, remediation, would you say?
Yes.
And I'm also curious about kids in the district who are on grade level, and where would they fit into these numbers or graphs, if you will? And what type of supports are they getting?
They get support in the classroom from their teachers. So when students are out of the classroom with a reading specialist for reading support, during WIN time, the classroom teacher then also will provide support for students, enrichment for students that are on Tier 1 or above Tier 1, and Tier 2 support in small group instruction. So, for example, if I go into a classroom during WIN time for ELA and I'm observing small groups of students, the teacher may have one book or a book of a similar topic and different various levels where they're able to provide support for children based on their level and the same skill. So you think if they're talking about common nouns, proper nouns, identifying them, or main idea and details, it will be the same skill but different levels.
And are there any opportunities for those higher achievers, if you will, to assist some of the students that rank basic?
Absolutely, because sometimes when the groups are built or developed from the teacher, it could be various groups. When they move from station to station, the teacher has a core group that are on the same level. However, but when they're working with a peer or in a group, it could be a mixed abilities.
Thank you.
Ms. Fazy.
Since you asked, I'm just gonna give a couple. I thank you for the data and the presentation. It's always comprehensive, and I appreciate it. Going back to parent involvement, it seems like you guys have great parent involvement, especially in the beginning of the year. I would love to see that capitalized on and see us go ahead and try to find ways to get parents actively involved more than, I love one book, one school. We do it every year and my kids love it. And then this year, actually with my middle schooler, I started reading the same books that she was reading in her English class. And that was a really, really fun experience as an adult to go ahead and be reading what she's reading and be able to discuss it. And I think that it was kind of beneficial to both of us. Anytime I get to read with my kids is beneficial to both of us. But to go ahead and see maybe ways of going ahead and getting parents, like capitalizing on that initial engagement there in the beginning of the year to go ahead and foster something that's more ongoing and more in depth, and maybe getting parents, my kids have the reading logs, they do the reading logs, but where I get in depth with them is the book reports. Asking them okay, well, what did you get out of this chapter? What happened? Tell me about it. Those are the things where, getting involved with my kids with their reading, I think that they start to understand it, they start to get it. And I see their growth come out then. So if there's any way we can go ahead and I think that capitalizing on that initial engagement there to go ahead and get the parents involved and get the additional resources out would be great.
Ms. Wu?
I just want to say, with parents, sometimes they don't have the time to read to their kids because my parents never had time, but having the time during school to go to the library, that was my favorite part of the week. So I would always check out a book every week and I would finish reading it, or check out 2 or 3 books. It was the best part.
Mine too. I think, parents are under a lot of pressure. I don't think that we should understate that. But I also think that, given everything the district is doing in terms of supporting our students who are not on grade level for reading and also mathematics, one of the things I'm hearing pretty consistently from my colleagues is it may be time to think about the benefits of building a culture of reading sort of beyond the limits of our schools, beyond those brick and mortar limits. So, Mrs. Brown suggested higher to lower grade tutoring. That might be a potential help. But also in engaging parents who have struggling readers, encouraging them to, if it's a 2-parent household and only one parent can come, maybe that parent gets to bring a friend, right? It's a lot friendlier, so to speak. Anything we can do to help parents engage with the process, anything we can do to build a community that values reading will benefit our students. And I'm not just talking about the district community, because I know that we're doing important steps, hard work, but, the community as a whole. My kids are out of school. I wish I could read to them still. But I would be, personally, I would be happy to help in any way I can. So just put that out there, and thank you for that presentation. Does anyone have any further comments or thoughts? No? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. We will now move on to comments from citizens. Comments from citizens are being conducted both in person and by phone. The phone number to participate in public comments is 267-715-3717 and is being displayed on the screen at this time. You'll be able to join the meeting by calling in on your mobile or landline phone. If there's anyone present who would like to make a comment, please use the microphone either to your left or to your right.
I need some sugar. Hi, my name is Eileen Denton. I live on Moreland Road in Abington, and
really excited to hear about talking about love of reading and libraries. That's my wheelhouse. I think sometimes especially with the younger kids, when they're in that sort of remediation, there's so much focus on like drilling into skills that it does take away that love of reading, whether it's on grade level or below grade level. And I think that, kids love things like being able to eat lunch with, the teacher, the principal, or somebody, book clubs for kids that they can meet during lunch, making it a fun thing. You get to you're not in the cafeteria, you get to go in the classroom and eat your lunch with so-and-so and talk about a book. Even if you don't talk about the book that much, the idea is you read the book and that's how you get into this program. Speaking to the library, they do have reading buddies and they are starting a program, Math Buddies. And I know that there's a requirement for volunteer hours. And I think that would be a great way to encourage more Abington students to do that. I know the librarians over at Abington try to provide a lot of easy volunteer opportunities. But I think really trying to encourage them to do the reading buddies and math buddies, I think would be a great benefit for the community service, that they can see the benefit of giving back. And I also just wanted to add summer reading. I think it would be great if there was more emphasis on the summer reading. If you look at the website for the books, it's just very like, here are some books you might want to read. I think there's a way to really incentivize it more. I know the library does through their challenges, but I really think there'd be a way for the school district to put a bigger push, because you can see for some of the numbers, kids coming in, there's more and more kids at the beginning of the year that are below grade level. So like you see that like, okay, now we got to get even past that, that group that's below is increasing. And that's that summer slump. But I'm always happy to, share whatever I can and be helpful in any way that I can. But yeah, I'd like to hear that idea of fostering that love of reading that's separate from the skill and drill kind of stuff that we have to do.
Thank you for your voice. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to make a comment?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Joe Rooney. I live in Ardsley. I was going to start off, and I got a lot to cover, but I was going to ask about the brawl in the middle school and the ones that have been coming. But after looking at the academic presentation, it's pretty much been explained to me. If you can't read and you can't do math, then school's pretty much a waste of time. And if kids are coming out of 5th grade and are 2 or 3 levels below grade in math and reading, they're stuck. So what I got out of that, first off, it's shocking and it's disappointing. And I know there's some good numbers, but all in all, for us, Abington used to be first in the alphabet, first in academics, first in athletics. It's not that way now, and we need to ask ourselves about that. So what have we got? If you got kids that can't read at level, then they're also not doing math and they're not learning any of their other subjects. And when you look at the beginning of one year, you can tell where they were the year before. They have to be held back until they're able to read, or they can't learn. We're failing them if we take them from grade 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and they're consistently 2 or 3 grades below. They're stuck and they're never going to make it. It may seem hard, but you can't advance them. You're not doing them any favor. By the time a kid reaches the 5th level or 6th grade or whatever, they're stuck at that point. So, I mean, I have a lot of compassion for them, but what you've got to do is get them up to that level or don't advance them, because you're throwing into something they can't advance to. So that's what the brawls are about in the middle school, is those poor kids who are stuck have been moved on, and they probably have a good reason to be pretty angry at our school district. So then you move on to that. We're focusing on spending $285 million to build a new building, and we can't teach kids how to math and read in elementary school. We need to put like 95% of our effort right there, and it's going to show great dividends in high school and in middle school. I got 1 minute left. I got tons to talk about. I hope I get a little extra time. So, I mean, that's where we got to go. Look, $285 million. The president says, oh, there's a lot of families who are really stressed. You're going to increase their taxes by $1,000 each. $20 an hour, a guy's got to work 50 extra hours. That's 50 hours it's not available to read to his kids. We need to slow this program down, and I'll have to talk about it more in the next time. But we need to go, and what is our focus? It's on teaching children how to read and do math. Everything else is secondary until that's mastered. So don't increase taxes by $1,000. Don't increase the budget by $5 million with another $200 tax increase. And let these parents have the time with their kids in order to teach them and catch them up and not spend an extra week or 2 weeks or a month at work instead of at home. That's where I wish the compassion was. And I'm sure I'm out of time, so it'll wait. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your voice. Anyone else in the room?
I'm Joe O'Brien, Roslyn Avenue in Glenside. First thing I want to tell you is almost a year and a half ago, I had an Abington senior come out and want to buy something. I told him he could put a 25% deposit on $650 item. He couldn't calculate it without his phone. I spent half an hour teaching that kid how to get 10% by moving the decimal point and calculating it in his head. That's something he should have learned here at Abington. My father went to Abington. When he graduated, he went straight to Drexel in the engineering school. You are now ranked for the last 3 years, 54th out of 100 schools. Wissahickon was 12. And you're asking for more money? You're not teaching these kids anything. Now, with these things you're doing with these kids, the numbers you showed, are they rated on a national average or are they rated against Abington? Because if you're not taking them up to the national average, you're not doing them any service. Okay, it's just getting to be too much. I look at this, in 18, which was the only other year I can get from the last 3, you were 31 out of 50. Abington used to be in the top 10 schools in the state. And you've raised the taxes every year, and you have not moved one place. 54, 54, 54. You're below half. And you're happy with that? You think you should build a new building? Upper Dublin School was built in 1952. They modified it. Wissahickon was built in 63. They modified it. And they were number 12. You're not preparing kids. You're not getting them up there. You're not getting them taught. And you're asking for more money? I think you ought to really think about if you should get it.
Thank you for your voice. Dr. Fetcher. Oh, I'm sorry. I did not see you. Go ahead.
Jen Pertel, I live in Glenside. The last speaker was saying how he had an interaction with a student from Abington and how disappointed he was. It's funny because I had an interaction with an Abington student beyond my 3 who all went to Abington, and met her at the library, and she was excited about taking out a book, and I noticed that she was a senior at the high school. So I asked her if she had plans after graduation, and she said, yeah. And I said, well, have you decided where you're going to go? And she lifted up her bag, and she's going to MIT. And she doesn't want to pick a major because there's so much that she wants to learn, and she doesn't want to limit herself for the first 2 years she's there. And I know from the years that my kids have graduated that this school sends kids to Harvard, to Brown, to Georgetown, to Yale, to Cornell, to all the Ivies, to Penn State, Pitt, Villanova, to Michigan. So we are a big school. We have kids that struggle. We have kids that excel. And I know that you and all the staff and the teachers work every day to give them the best shot at whatever they do after high school. And And while it's not all of them are going to go to Harvard and Yale and MIT, they are going to hopefully thrive in whatever they choose. And I believe in what this school does, and I appreciate what you guys do.
Thank you for your voice. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Bryson. I was just presenting for the student council. I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention, or at least the board's attention, that how crucial reading is really as you get older in the high school. I'm a byproduct of Abington through and through, came up through McKinley, came up through the middle school, and now I'm getting ready to graduate. And those readings, like critical reading skills are so important, not just in school, but outside of school. But Abington prides itself on having all these AP classes, all the opportunities for kids to take. But without these crucial reading skills, it's not really an option for kids who don't feel like they can read on the level that they would need to take AP literature, AP language, XYZ. We have the opportunities, but is it really available to these students? Also, in terms of the budget, I just wanted to inquire kind of about, because Abington Senior High School did have budget issues last year, which affected some of our programming going into this year. And I just wanted to make sure everyone knows that students can definitely feel that. Like sometimes we say that students might not be able to feel these personnel cuts or XYZ, thinking it's not affecting them, but we definitely feel it. It has an effect on our programs. And academics is, of course, the number one important thing, but I just want everyone to know that these changes that we're looking at on a screen, it's hard to put a picture to a face. You could put it to my face. It's affecting, we know, we can feel it. So just keep that in mind when, making decisions up in the big house.
Thank you for your thoughts, Bryson, and for those important insights. I think one of the reasons that I'm particularly concerned about these reading scores in the grade schools for precisely the reason you just noted, that these are foundational skills, and students absolutely need them in order to avail themselves of the opportunities they have in high school and beyond. So thank you for that. Dr. Fetcher.
We have a caller on.
Oh, we have another caller. Okay.
The next citizen for public comment is phone number ending in 1661. Please state your full name and address.
Hello.
Hello, go ahead. We can hear you.
Hi, this is Michelle Cooper, Kingsley Road. Good evening, members of the board, administrators, and fellow community members. For families who benefit from...
I'm sorry, could I just ask you to speak up a little louder?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we're good now. Thank you.
Great. So for families who benefit from supports provided by Medicaid and on behalf of the Abington Township Human Relations Commission, I just wanted to invite people who are listening to a virtual panel discussion this Thursday evening, 6:30. It's entitled, Who Pays the Price? Understanding the Human Toll of Medicaid Cuts. Panelists will discuss how cuts will impact people across the state, including families whose children need Medicaid in order to support their learning environments. You can go to the Township's Human Relations Commission website, and at the bottom you'll find a Facebook feed where you can get more information and register. But switching topics, I am a proud parent of two students in the Abington School District. I'm calling tonight to express my strong support for the referendum to fund a new middle school and remind residents to vote yes on May 20th. Our current middle school is outdated and failing to meet the needs of today's students. As a parent, I want my children and all students in Abington to have access to modern, safe, and effective learning spaces. The reality is that renovating the current building would cost nearly the same as building new, 92% of the cost, without delivering long-term benefits. On top of that, renovations would take 4 years, disrupting students' education while failing to fully address outdated infrastructure. A new middle school is the smartest investment for our students and for our community. Strong schools increase home values, attract families and businesses, and ensure that Abington remains a top-tier place to live. This is not just about today's students. It's about making sure our schools continue to serve future generations. We also know this is our only chance to secure funding for a new school. If the referendum fails, there is no backup plan. The district will be forced to pour millions into patchwork repairs that will continue draining resources from classrooms. That is not a solution. The numbers speak for themselves. 60% of residents support building a new middle school, and 85% of residents believe investing in our schools protects our community. I want to be part of that investment, and I urge my fellow parents, neighbors, and community members to do the same. So on May 20th, I'll be voting yes for a new middle school for the future of Abington. Thank you.
Thank you for your voice. Mr. Green, our next caller, please.
This would be the second time they're calling
Um, Dr. Fetcher, what's our
They're
protocol here?
only allowed one
Okay.
moment in each section, so they can call back at the end of
Okay.
in the next comment section.
Okay. So if you can hear me, you can call back in the next comment section. And we'll move on to the second caller.
in. It looks like they're no longer there. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. You want to give it a minute? Okay.
The next citizen for public comment is phone number ending in 4257. Please state your full name and address.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Erin Palmer, and I live on Carmet Road. And I'm just calling because I'd like to congratulate the casts and crews of the middle school and high school productions of Mary Poppins Jr. and Anastasia. My family attended both, and we are always amazed at all of the talent and dedication these students have. Ms. Bloom and Ms. Joseph, just want to give them shout outs in the middle school, are absolutely amazing. My 8th grader is really going to miss them next year when she moves on to the high school. That being said, I'm really glad to see that in the plan for the new middle school, which is posted on the One ASU website, some attention will be placed on the outdated performing arts spaces. The students and the teachers really deserve some larger and more modern spaces, and I'm glad that that is going to be considered. That's all. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you for your voice. Mr. Green, can you confirm that there are no callers on the line?
There are no more callers on the line.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Fetcher.
Just 2 comments. One, in terms of the promotion of literacy district-wide, I couldn't agree with anyone more in terms of how essential it is to grow a love of reading at an early age and to continue that, especially as students get older. And part of that leads to my second comment, and that is I also agree with the comments that were made about how important it is for our students not to fall behind and to become, to be on grade level. And I think that the presentation that we saw this evening addresses just that. And it is a look at the beginning of the year where students are, the middle of the year, and the end of the year. And the goal is by the end of the year for everyone to be 100% on grade level. And so what we saw this evening, if we have seen students who may not be performing by middle of the year, it's essential for us to put in the interventions that you heard about this evening. So I think that the combination of those 2 things is very important, and I don't want that to go overlooked. Finally, I would like to speak about our students and specifically our graduates here in Abington and the amazing things that they are doing. Yes, do we have students who struggle? Absolutely. Do we have students who are making a huge difference on the world? Absolutely. I was fortunate to be principal here in Abington and to look at where students have gone from graduation and the things that they've accomplished later on, and some of them even having the opportunity to return to Abington as some of our teachers. So I wouldn't want to discredit the great things that are occurring, but also recognize that, we are constantly looking at school improvement as a way to meet the needs of students who may not be making the mark. And we often hear in our community from Abington graduates about the solid education that they've received here in Abington. And I am proud of that, but also recognize that we need to constantly look at interventions for students who aren't there yet.
Thank you for that. I would just add that I will look forward to seeing the end of the year data and improvement for our students. I think, I don't want to speak for board members, but judging from your team tonight, that I share their sense that those numbers cannot stand. So with that, I think we will move on to the approval of minutes. Ms. Fazy.
That the Board of School Directors approves the minutes of the board meeting on February 11th, 2025, and the board meeting on February 25th, 2025.
Second.
We have a second, Dr. Fraser. Mrs. Flanagan, sorry. No, Dr. Fetcher.
We've submitted the minutes for your.
Oh, okay. Mrs. Flanagan, this is a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The motion passes. Ms. Fazy, can you please read the recommendation for approval of the personnel addenda?
That the Board of School Directors approves the changes in personnel as reflected in personnel addendums number 8.1 and 8.1A and confidential addendum number 8.1B.
Second.
We have a second, Dr. Fetcher.
Thank you, Dr. Mowry. The personnel addendum begins with a request for leaves of absence for 3 professional employees, compensation for IEP meetings and parent meetings. I bring your attention to the retirement of Miss Yolanda Moran, a first grade teacher at Copper Beach Elementary School who has served the district for 22 years.
Mrs. Flanagan, this is a roll call vote.
May I?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Just to Ms. Moran, I had the pleasure of having her as a teacher of one of my children, and it was such a blessing. So I pray that these years after retirement will be joyful years for you, and that you will take time to reset and love on your family. Thank you for your 22 years of service.
Indeed, thank you. Okay, Mrs. Flanagan, this is a roll call.
Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Mrs. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Eisenhart?
Aye.
Mr. Mohammed?
Aye.
Ms. Spalding?
Aye.
Ms. Hartman?
Aye.
Ms. Frazier?
Aye.
Ms. Fazy?
Aye.
Dr. Mowry?
Aye. The ayes have it. The motion passes. Ms. Fazy, can you read the recommended action for permits of buildings and grounds?
That the Board of School Directors approves the applications for permits for use of buildings and grounds as reflected in addendum number 9.1.
Second.
Dr. Fetcher, we have a second.
Thank you, Dr. Mowry. The permit addendum continues to reflect requests for buildings and grounds for meetings and other school events and activities for this time of year.
Okay, questions or comments from my fellow board members?
Thank you for your service and creating opportunities for students to work together, bond, and enjoy things outside of the 4 walls or sometimes within the 4 walls of the school.
Okay. I also want to thank the folks at Willow Hill for creating that opportunity for a book club for students, faculty, and staff. Mrs. Flanagan.
Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Mrs. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Eisenhart?
Aye.
Mr. Mohammed?
Aye.
Ms. Spalding?
Aye.
Ms. Hartman?
Aye.
Ms. Frazier?
Aye.
Ms. Fazy?
Aye.
Dr. Mowry?
Aye. Ms. Fazy, can you please read, I'm sorry, the ayes have it, the motion passes. Ms. Fazy, can you please read the recommendation for awards of contracts?
That the Board of School Directors approves the awards of contracts as reflected in addendum number 10.1.
Second.
We have a second, Dr. Fetcher.
Thank you, Dr. Mowry. Tonight, for your consideration, we have 3 awards of contracts. The first is for capital lease financing agreement. This is for the 8 replacement 72-passenger student transportation buses that we spoke about at the last meeting. These finance payments will be expensed through the general fund budget beginning with the 2025-2026 school year and will continue through the 2029-2030 school year.
Okay, thank you. Questions or, I'm sorry.
We also have 2 more. The next is for the library management system software and cloud migration. And the final one is for Microsoft Office Suite. That's it.
Okay. Questions or comments from board members? I have a question about the library management system. Is that a cataloging system?
So it's the Destiny Library System by Follett. It's for processing and transactions within the library resources. It also has some migration to the cloud to basically reduce some of that information. And Dr. Melchor, do you want to explain that further? More detail?
It's, as Dr. Mallory mentioned, so it's the cataloging system for the library, so students can look up books, select books. It's accessible 24/7 from home and from school.
Oh, they can access it remotely?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Okay. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay, Mrs. Flanagan, it's a roll call vote.
Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Mrs. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Eisenhart?
Aye.
Mr. Mohammed?
Aye.
Ms. Spalding?
Aye.
Ms. Hartman?
Aye.
Ms. Frazier?
Aye.
Ms. Fazy?
Aye.
Dr. Mowry?
Aye. The ayes have it, the motion passes. Ms. Fazy, can you please read the recommendation for the Ashton Carter Memorial Gifts and Bequests?
That the Board of School Directors approves the installation of a garden/courtyard outside of Abington Senior High School in memory of Dr. Ashton Carter, class of 1972, with materials and installation donated at no cost to the school district by members of the Abington Senior High School, class of 1972, and design approved by the school district, understanding that the school district will not be responsible for maintenance and upkeep of this donation.
Second.
We have a second, Dr. Fetcher.
Yes, so this is a group of alumni from the Abington Senior High School class of 1972 approached the administration for their desire to donate a memorial garden or courtyard on the grounds of Abington Senior High School. Ms. Artur has worked with the group, and I'm going to ask her to please expand on that.
Yes, so as Dr. Fetcher mentioned, last school year, members of the class of 1972 who remained close friends with Abington alumnus and former Secretary of Defense, Dr. Ashton Carter, up until his death in 2022, they approached administration with a desire to donate a memorial garden or courtyard on the grounds of Abington Senior High School. We worked with them to identify a location just outside of the main entrance. So tonight, this donation is being presented in accordance with the policy and staff regarding gifts and bequests.
Questions and comments from board members? No? Ms. Wu? Nothing? Okay. All right, it's a roll call vote, Mrs. Flanagan.
Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Mrs. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Eisenhart?
Aye.
Mr. Mohammed?
Aye.
Ms. Spalding?
Aye.
Ms. Hartman?
Aye.
Ms. Frazier?
Aye.
Ms. Fazy?
Aye.
Dr. Mowry?
Aye. The ayes have it, the motion passes. Dr. Fetcher, are there any additional reports and recommendations by the administration?
Yes, Dr. Maria, provide the conference attendance and professional leaves report and the capital improvement projects report for your information.
Okay. Questions or comments? Okay, is there any other business that may be appropriately brought before the board? All right, that brings us to our final section, or session of comments from citizens. Comments from citizens are being conducted both in person and by phone. The phone number to participate is 267-715-3717 and is being displayed on the screen at this time. You'll be able to join the meeting by calling in on your mobile or landline phone. If there's anyone present who would like to make a comment, please use the microphone either to the left or to your right.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Joe Rooney again from Ardsley. I'll try and do a quick shotgun thing. First, to my always neglected and often maligned Christian brothers and sisters, I'd like to wish you all a peaceful and holy Lent, which of course leads up to our Holy Week, which is Good Friday, and then culminating with the good news of the resurrection on Easter Sunday. So these are awesome times for us, and I wish you well. Second, St. Patrick's Day is coming up. So Dr. O. Fetcher, Mrs. O'Malley, I hope everybody has a great St. Patrick's Day. We also have a lunar eclipse between the 13th and the 14th, midnight to like 2 o'clock in the morning. It's like 6 hours long. Just mention it in case anybody's interested. You can join me. I'll be out there on that. Next, Common Sense Abington. We got to vote no on this bond issue. It's not that we don't need work and we love education, but $285 million is no plan at all. Come join us, take a sign, put it up. And I'll go back to what I was going to do before. I was trying to think with my wife what's going on with this vote. Because what you basically did is you voted on something, there's no specs, there's no plans, there's no bid. There's just hurry up and borrow the money, commit yourselves to a 40-year payback. You know what that is? It's a timeshare pitch. So people have asked me, what is ICS? If you're out there listening, our board just bought into a timeshare pitch with our money. What do we need to do? We need to proceed with caution. Now is not the time to borrow $285 million. What are we going to do if we vote on it and the rates aren't 5.5%, if they're 6.5%? We have a plan. Someone just said we have no plan. There's no plan for that either, other than it's going to cost people more money. How about if we're in an unsettled economy and steel prices are going up? What are we going to do? We have no plan. It's time to proceed with caution. Take your time. Develop an actual plan. Look at what we can do if we spent $50 million. What if we spent $100 million? There's an acceptable number out there that might actually give us money to teach kids in elementary school how to read. You already voted on this. We need to vote no. It's not a vote against education. It's not a vote against the school district. It's a vote to spend money wisely for all of our kids into the future. Just spending our grandkids and children's money for 40 years is not an answer to anything, and building a building does not teach people how to read and do math. We owe a better education to all of our children, and it doesn't start with capital projects. It starts with meeting their needs where they are and getting them up onto par. Thank you very much.
Why have you not made it public knowledge that CTS, if this resolution passes, will get between $28.5 and $34.2 million of that 285? $28.5 to $34.2 million they will get of that resolution. That means that we only get 250 at best. But you don't let anybody know that, do you? Well, I hope they know now.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Jen Pertel from Glenside. I was going to talk about how one of the speakers last meeting said that they love what's happening with Doge and that they want to have that here. But I do find it a little ironic that there's a worry from somebody that steel prices are going to go up and interest rates are going to go up. And that's a direct result of what this current administration is doing. So I find that just a little funny, actually. But anyway, so what a previous speaker had said is that they think they need Doge here. And I'm not really, and I guess that's because they think they're doing an amazing job. And I'm not really sure where they're getting that information. I know that there's this wall of receipts, supposedly. It's pretty much filled with errors or, mistakes and stuff. So, but just as a thought experiment, what would that look like if it was happening in Abington? It would mean that at Abington Hospital, like at the VA, a quarter of the employees would be fired, just like that. And that for Abington Hospital, that would be approximately 1,400 employees. It would mean at the Abington Township and Abington Police Department, just like at the FBI, a quarter of the employees would be fired, just like that. And so that would be approximately 40 township employees, and that would be approximately 23 officers. It would mean at the Abington School District, just like at the Social Security Administration and at the Department of Education, half of the employees would be fired. And so for Abington School District, that would be approximately 574 staff and teachers to start. And of course, their plan is to eliminate the Department of Education. So you may think that these actions, I'm sorry.
People were respectful for you. You should be respectful when they're talking.
Thank you.
That's right.
So of course, that was a clap because, he wants public school to be gone. So we know that. So you may think that none of these actions will affect you because you wouldn't be fired or you don't send your kids to Abington Public Schools, etc. But we all live in the same community and we rely on the services and support we receive from the township, from the police department, from the hospital, and from the schools. And plus, for all of us, the largest investment we have is our house. And so decimating our township assets not only is bad for now, it is bad for the future. And it's actually worse for the future because it would destroy what makes Abington a sought-after place to work and live. And so, thank you.
Thank you for your voice.
May I speak?
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Hi, my name's Joe Dunn. I live in Jenkintown. As a retired nurse and nursing instructor, I have the most respect for teachers. Believe me, I've been there and done that. And I appreciate the improvements I've seen by those charts. But it made me have a question. I'm not sure if you can answer it. Because the numbers are so poor, I'm just curious, say in 10 years ago, did that problem exist as much to where it needs all this attention? I'm just curious if you can enlighten me a little bit if you know. Is it always been like that, or is it a much bigger problem now than it was before? Can anyone answer that? I'm not sure if I'm even allowed to ask a question like that. But
So this is not a back and forth, but
okay.
Dr. Fetcher will likely address that once you're done with your time.
Okay. Well, that it kind of blared at me. I'm a baby boomer, and when I was in school, we had 99 boys in my class, so it was like challenging. But it just seems more challenging from what I've been seeing with these charts and everything, and that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your voice. Is this the same caller? Okay, so they've already called in once. No. Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Bryson.
I'm not a taxpayer, so I can't speak from that perspective, Soon, but not yet, thankfully. But I can speak from the perspective of a student who went to the middle school and hasn't been back recently, but knows what it's like. And that could definitely be attributed to one of the reasons that fights may be breaking out or students might not be learning as efficiently, because the middle school is decrepit and falling apart. And it's to the point where I'm a member of the ACT task force, Abington Community Task Force, and we met and saw the numbers and saw all the projections in the beginning, and they made it very clear that it's basically impossible to like modify or save without spending the same amount of money we would be spending anyway. So why would we waste our money and replace, for example, roofing that's falling apart? Why would we waste our money and do that when we could invest in a whole new building and have students learning on new technology that works and that could be helping them even more? Because we do know that's a true fact that we know this newer technology is helping, which the chart that we just looked at shows. This newer technology is definitely helping students and raising rates of raising reading levels and math scores, XYZ. So why not put them in an environment where they're surrounded by that kind of stuff? Just, I don't know, food for thought.
Thank you for your voice. Anyone else? Okay, Dr. Fetcher.
First, I wanted to address the comment about ICS and what they would gain from this contract, to put it into perspective of a building project itself. The fees that are associated are 5 to 6% for a design fee, and that includes a design team. Program management fee is about 1 to 2%, and construction management fee, which is about 1.5 to 2.5%. So the range is around the 7.5, 8%. That being said, to put it into context with a project that we most recently completed, that project, the actual fees at the completion of the project, which included the same type of fee, same things, design, program, and construction management, was 7.5%. So it is part of, doing a project that you have to do these construction management, you have to do design, and this all said and done is a similar percentage, and I think that it's important to point out, and that's from a project we just completed.
Anything else you want to address?
In terms of the scores over the last 10 years, obviously we do look at score trends over that time period. What I would say first is we did see over the past few years decline nationally, and that hit us here in Abington as well. The one thing I could say is 10 years ago, we didn't have the resources that we have, that you saw this evening, to be able to target instruction in the manner in which it is done. You heard of different assessments and diagnostic tools that are used. I've been in the field for 28 years, and I could say that in the past 10 years, it's a world of difference of what's available to inform instruction, and also to target specifically for each individual student-centered approach. And I think tonight's presentation was a testament to that. So have there been a decline in the past 10 years? Yes. And how are we addressing that? I think we saw that this evening, and the strategies that we're using. One thing that I would also mention is tonight, when we saw strategies that we developed through our school improvement plans last year, those midpoint scores have helped us to look at their strategies to see what's working, what's not working, and make mid-year adjustments. That is something that doing these diagnostics throughout the year, not just at the end of the year in a state test, provides ongoing data, and we can correct the course if we need to correct a course if we're not getting what we anticipated or gains from different interventions. So the challenge is there, and I believe that we are trying whatever we can to face this national problem that is occurring also in Abington School District.
Okay. And am I correct in understanding that most of the data we looked at tonight was focused on Tier 2 and Tier 3 students? So these were not, most of the data we were looking at involved students who were in need of some intervention to get them up to grade level, rather than Tier 1 students who are already reading at grade level.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think it's important to note, and this is, I am not trying to be master of the obvious, but if we look at September and we had all of our students in September at 100%, then we could move right to June. And so the goal is to get to 100% by that third assessment. And what I do see is the improvement and the growth to get there. Obviously, at the middle of the year, we would love for our kids to be on grade level at the middle of the year that they should be in June. But we have the year to do that and to help progress. And all these interventions are put into place as safeguards throughout the year to help our students reach that goal of 100% of being on grade level and beyond grade level for our students who that may be an extreme strength.
Okay. And then if I could just ask for clarification on two other points. When did we begin the process of evaluating the middle school and assessing and doing the feasibility studies for district needs for that cohort?
So the first thing we did was a facilities condition assessment. That was district-wide, and year on that.
I think that work began in 2021.
Okay.
And then we had a first presentation in June of 2022.
Okay. So we have been publicly presenting this very long process for going on 3 years now. Okay, great. That seems important to me. The second thing I was hoping you might clarify is in the process of doing the addition at the senior high school, when did the district move into the design phase? Was it before the bond was approved or after?
The design phase would be after.
Okay. And so this process is consistent with the process we used for that addition. Design happens after the money has been approved.
Yeah, there are estimates based on square footage, enrollment, and those estimates create a construction square footage, which is what the number is based off of.
Right. That helps us assess the
borrowing what we need to borrow.
Correct. Okay. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. With that, we will move to closing comments of school directors. Mr. Allen.
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Brown.
It's been a long night. Thank you for your contributions. Everyone have a good evening.
Ms. Eisenhart.
Ditto, Mrs. Brown. Thank you. Have a good night.
Mr. Muhammad.
Good night, everyone.
Ms. Spalding.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Ms. Hartman.
I just want to say one quick thing. I want to thank all the administrators in central office for all the work they're doing for our kids. I know that the teachers, the administrators, everyone's heart and soul is with the kids and wants the kids to do well. And I know that that's all of our goals. And I just want to say thank you very much for everything you're doing for the kids. I appreciate it. We all do.
Ms. Fraser.
Night-night.
Ms. Fazy.
Take good care, everyone.
Ms. Wu.
Happy Holy to those celebrating it on Friday, and have a good night.
Okay. I want to second Ms. Hartman's support for our our staff and our teachers, and just say that we are, well, I won't say we. I'll say I am very proud to be working on these challenges that we face with you. So with that, good night, everyone.